Good evening, students. Is the sound okay?
Yes, Desha, good evening. How are you?
Good, Flor, thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Good. Tonight we're going to have two exercises. The first one is about one class. One of your classmates shared with us, or with all of you, the link of her class, and we're going to analyze what she did in order to work on behavior in the classroom. And the second part of the encounter will be about reviewing the reading that you had last week. So we are going to start with the video of your classmate. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, here we have your classmate Liliana. She's teaching 6 students. They are 7-year-old, more or less. And her lesson was about some items of clothing. So she taught during the lesson how to talk about some items of clothing. She used a video with a song, but before she started with the lesson, or before she started with the topic of items of clothing, she worked on the rules of the class. So I'm going to share the link with you, and I would like you to watch some minutes and tell me what she did in order to work on behavior in her class. Okay, this is the link, and I would like you to please watch from minute 3 to minute 9. Please let me know when you are done with that. Okay, since most of you are done, we are going to discuss what you watched. So, George, could you please tell us what you watched during those minutes?
Okay, hello. Can you listen to me?
Yes, hello, George.
Hello. Well, first thing was that she was explaining the rules, apparently, uh, both in English and Spanish, reading, pasting the rules in the classroom to make everything clear. And students were drilling as she read the rules and explaining them.
Okay, good. Francisco, thank you, George. Francisco, which were some of the rules that she presented to the students?
Okay, teacher. Raise their hand when they are going to speak. Listen to the teacher. Another one. Uh,
And
for
others,
me,
right?
okay. Raise the hand. Listen to the teacher. Respect the partners. For me, are the most important rules, and the students got it.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Somebody else?
Me, teacher.
Okay, now I want you to watch 2 minutes more, but it will be, you need to forward the video till you get to 1 hour and 28. So you're going to watch from 1 hour and 28 to 1 hour and 30, because during those 2 minutes there was a problem in the classroom, and I would like you to tell me how the teacher dealt with that problem. So please watch those 2 minutes, and when you are done, please let me know. Forward the video till you get to 1 hour and 28 and watch from 1 hour and 28 to 1 hour and 30. Okay, so let's discuss what you watched. Sandra, during the during the class, as I said at the beginning, the teacher was trying to help the students identify some items of clothing and practice how to pronounce them, how to pronounce those words, and how to write those words. She used a song and a video. And the 2 minutes that you just watched, during those 2 minutes, there was a problem. Could you please, Sandra, tell us what you watched and what the teacher did in order to deal with that problem?
With young children, it is common to find this type of a sense of circumstance, um, and is where we has teachers to perform the corrective or feedback or dialogue for this case.
Okay, so Sandra is also a teacher for preschoolers, so she knows that that happens a lot. Exactly what happened in the video? What did you see?
A discussion into between two partners.
So they were fighting. One of the students was very close to the computer, and every time the song finished, he wanted to play it again because that's what the teacher was doing while the students were working on a hands-on activity. So by the time the song stopped, he wanted to play it again, but also other classmates wanted to do the same. So there was there was a discussion there, a fight between the two boys. And what did the teacher do? Arlene, so tell us what you watched that the teacher did to solve the problem.
Well, I saw that the teacher took one of the students, so the student that was, can you hear me, teacher?
Yes, we can hear.
All right, I'm sorry. Yeah, I saw that the teacher, talked to the student that was like, uh, I don't know, continuing with the problem, continuing with the discussion, and she decided like to stop the student with the discussion and like focus again the student on what the activity is.
Okay, thank you. Uh, Andres, what did you see? What else did the teacher do to solve the problem?
What I saw, teacher, is that the teacher put the students in different places in the classroom.
Okay. Joanna, what did you see?
I see that the teacher showed the students the rules again and the importance to respect the other's partners. And she tried to calm down the student because he was so in that case furious. I don't know, but I think that the teacher showed again the rules, and that was an excellent option. I think.
Okay, well, thank you. So that's one way to deal with those problems. Those of you who have worked with little kids know that that happens a lot, as Sandra mentioned. The students can fight or can argue or can have a discussion about things like what you watched in the video. And it is very important to set the rules for the class and stop what stop the lesson and solve the problem. In a previous lesson, this teacher had some problems with the students that were hiding under the chairs or under the tables. Some of them were playing, some of them were screaming. So what she had to do was to set the rules in order to help the students understand what it was expected from them. It seems weird for those of you who have not taught children, but it is something very important that is necessary to do with little kids. Those of you who want to watch the video, you can do it. Liliana accepted to share the link. So if you want to watch the whole video, you can do it any moment. The idea is also that you see the type of activities that she used and the number of activities that she used. Because with little kids, their attention span is very short. So not only setting the rules helps to deal with behavior problems, but also to have students um, engaged in the activities is very important. So with that example of that class, you can see the type of exercises and activities that can help students at that age to focus their attention and to learn something. Okay, any question so far? Okay, so the second part of the encounter is about the reading that you had last week. It was about synetics. So I would like some of you, please talk about what you remember from the reading. It was a research article, so I would like some of you tell the context of the research, the problems encountered there, the possible solutions, the findings of the research, and if you remember like the strategy, what it's about, synetics, what it's about, what are the stages. So who
Yes,
remembers?
teacher. Can
Flora.
I?
Yes, please.
Okay, teacher, thank you. Well, the reading was about the synetics as a teaching strategy for the development of citizenship skills in the classroom. The article is about a proposal of creative teaching for the development of civic competencies based on synetics. It's important to remember that synetics is a method of identifying and solving problems that depends on creative thinking. And the use of analogy and informal conversation among a small group of individuals with diverse experiences and expertise. For this proposal, took into account the teachers of 6th to 9th grades in a school which name is Liceo Femenino, Mercedes, I don't remember. This is an school here in Bogota, and their objective was to design a teaching proposal creative, observing the practices that teachers did in the classroom. The impact of the strategies that teachers use in the classroom is considered in this proposal. The idea, of course, is that through creative teaching, students leave their common context and think about their role as citizens, where they propose solutions to problems of coexistence. Taking into account that the social science department is not the only department responsible for citizen competence, the idea is that some specific projects were designing within which it is possible to see which of the strategies already used by all teachers in order to fortify citizen competence and creative. And of course, on the other hand, it is proposed to implement synetics as a teaching strategy. And for this proposal, the theoretical framework was based on the concepts of various researches and theories. Among them is William Gordon, who says that synetics is a creative teaching strategy, and he based it on four analogies: direct analogy, fantastic, personal, and symbolic. I I remember that teacher.
Okay, thank you, Flor. So as you mentioned, it was carried out in a school um, from with the students from 6 to 9 grades in order to develop citizenship competences using genetics, right? All right. Who else remembers like the findings of that research?
Teacher,
Somebody,
teacher.
Sharon, yes, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, the truth was that I didn't know what the genetic was, so I researched some information about it, and I like the meaning of this. And excuse me, and I want to talk about the stage of this research, and the first one describes the strategy that they implement to start doing the research, and then they define the methodology in which they are going to apply according with the group they planned to make the research. But I think the most important thing was the tools um, that they use to collect information in order to get involved with the context, because in other part of the reading I understand that one of the problems that they found was the teacher's attitude, or maybe because the teachers didn't know exactly what the 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 term was, the genetic was about. And at the end, this is related with create a citizen conscience, not only in the students, also in the teachers and the whole community in the school. So it was important to know that other kind of problem solving strategies to develop this kind of citizen conscience.
Okay, good. So that was the problem. So they wanted, the teachers wanted to develop that consciousness on the students. And well, I'm going to read Joanna's comment. She wrote, the first mentions that in the development of the class, there is no explicit intention to promote teaching strategies. That was one finding. What were the strategies, or how the teachers gave their lessons? What did they do? Because some of them said that they were being creative, but when the researchers visited the classes, they they realized about a different thing. They watched a different thing. How did those teachers work on their classes um, in order to help the students develop that citizenship competencies?
I can answer the question.
Sure, Giancarlo.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to apologize because I had a blackout in my area, so I just got late. Yes, what happened is that the teachers were privileging teaching strategies for these citizen competences based on value reflection. So basically, what they were doing was having the students to reflect on different values and human values, and so the class was like a set of techniques and ways that they were using in order to get the girls to talk about the experiences and just find like the purpose. By they were not really being creative, they were just like reflecting on the different values. They thought they were being creative, but as a matter of fact, with the reading said later on that that doesn't mean that it, they were being creative.
Okay, yes, thank you, Giancarlo. So, as you mentioned, uh, the teachers use some techniques to have students reflect on values. But as the reading mentions, values are only one little aspect in the development of citizenship competences. Okay, I'm going to read Arlei's comment. He wrote, they found that some teachers didn't know about the strategy and that in most of the cases, we as teachers focus on the main subjects, but we don't develop citizenship, citizenship competences on the students, leaving that responsibility to the social science studies. Okay, that was other finding. So researchers found that we could develop those that awareness about citizenship competences. We could develop that in all the lessons, but those teachers, and usually in most places, that is a task that is thought or to be developed only for social studies teachers. Okay, I'm going to read the other comments. Here, Blanca wrote, researchers also found that teachers didn't have an homogeneous and clear concept regarding creative teaching, and therefore they didn't know how to boost it. Exactly. So there was not a consensus among the teachers in that school about how to develop creativity in the students. So every teacher was doing what they thought was okay, but actually they were not promoting creativity in their classes.
Teacher, can I?
Flor, yes, Flor.
Yes, there is a particular thing that is that sometimes maybe not only in that school but also in many schools, we as a teachers and sometimes we have the knowledge about any topic or about how to teach any topic. But the problem is there is a big difference, like the reading said, between the knowledge that the teacher have and how to implement a specific methodology in order to teach that knowledge. About the second finding related to the objective number one is there is incoherence between saying and doing. This refers to the incoherence that exists between the answers given by the teacher because the proposal was based on an interview related to their abilities and the practice that they make on their knowledge within the classroom. That is the problem. Because maybe the teacher know what they have to do, but he or she doesn't know how to do it. That is the problem sometimes.
Okay, yes, that was other finding. So what the teachers said that they did during the lessons was not reflected when the researchers observed the classes. Exactly. And
Teacher,
sometimes, yes, go ahead.
one thing that caught my attention was that some teachers they have good activities, but they didn't know exactly why they were doing that. So they didn't have clear what competences or what other activities they could reach with those activities.
What the research mentions is that they had a lot of activities. Uh, they have didactic activities. They use different techniques to have students analyze, for example, reflect about values. But those activities that they use in the class or the different methodologies they implemented didn't help to develop creativity, which was like the need in the place. Good. Joanna wrote, teachers are not clear about how to implement creative teaching strategies in the classroom. Sometimes they have many activities, but not always they are creative. Exactly. And Lena wrote, also the teaching focuses on the transmission of knowledge, but not in the students to internalize the knowledge. Okay, that was also the important finding. Researchers revealed that teachers expected students to memorize some information. They presented the information, they expected the students to memorize it, but not to understand, not to understand that there was a problem that needed to be solved and try to find out the solution, but just to understand some concepts. And Blanca wrote, the researchers think that the teachers need to be updated in TICS. That's also important find. Some students have knowledge about TICS, but teachers didn't have the knowledge. Okay, does anybody remember the 4 stages of synaptics as a strategy to develop creativity?
Teacher,
Uh-huh.
I think another important fact in this kind of teaching strategies is not only focused on the on the teacher strategies. I mean, we know that we have to promote creativity and also to implement different elements by using the TAC tools and all that things. But also, when you are trying to develop a citizen conscience in students, we have to figure or to improve the critical thinking in they, because most of them think, oh, but if I do this in the street, for saying something, an example, they are always going to ask or think about that the other's behavior about a situation that they can solve in the street. For saying something, if they saw a thief and all a dangerous situation, they are going just to run away or maybe hide themselves in any corner in order to protect themselves, but they are not going to help that person who is in danger. So if we try to place this kind of situations in our classroom, they are just going to be lazy about the topic, and also it's related with the way we share the ideas, because we can um, uh, promote a whole project of citizenship and all the things. But I think that we have in this kind of research the two sides of the coin: the way that the teacher expose those kind of topics, and the way the students receive and try to understand those situations.
Okay, that was one finding also, that we usually give students all the answers and we don't have them analyze the situations and try to find the answers on their own. That we present the information and we want the students to um, identify it and memorize it without having them to work on other exercises, so that in order to help them uh, to understand and to try to come up with their own ideas. Good. Francisco wrote learning strategies. Could you please uh, give us more information about that idea, Francisco?
Yes, teacher, a learning strategy is an action in order to get easy in the learning process for the students. It's individual and intentional. So the teacher can use these strategies in order to the students go ahead in the topics studied.
Okay, and do you remember like any of the stages of synaptics?
Yeah, yes, teacher. Me, can I?
The
Okay,
activity.
okay. Francisco and then Flor. Francisco, you mentioned the activity.
No, go ahead, Flor, go ahead. No worries.
Flor, what are the stages that you remember about synaptics?
Teacher, are you speaking about is the same the moments?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Moment number one is when you introduce the topic. What analogy you use? Direct analogy. What is the activity or the facts? Compare problem with something similar that the teacher introduced. Moment number two, the activity is questions to know what is the previous knowledge that the students have. Analogy, personal analogy, and the fact is each student identify with the problem. What is your feeling in front of the problem? Moment number three, the piece of advice is to work in groups or individually, no problem. The analogy using is symbolic. And in this part, the problem is shown in a poetic way. Number four is the socialization with the group. The analogy is fantastic. And in this part, the teacher catch or listen to the imaginary solutions that the students or the same teacher can propose in this part. And the finally is moment number five is when the students can apply the solution to their habitual context.
Okay. I'm writing here. In that, thank you, Flor. In that list that you just gave us, there is something between the personal analogy, which is number two. So when we have to say how we feel about the problem, and the third one that you mentioned, which is like to try to find out solutions that are not connected to reality. So what is that is missing in that between those two stages?
What moment, teacher? Excuse me.
Yes, there is one moment which is which is between number two and number three of the stages that you mentioned, of the moments that you mentioned. So the teacher presents the problem, then the teacher asks the students how they feel about that, and before having them think about solutions that are not close to reality, there is other moment.
Yes, I'm not sure, but I suppose that is when the teacher use some images based on the problem. Not exactly the real, but he used in a poetic way or images are used based on the problem.
Exactly. So symbols.
And they tell the students to place in the like to put themselves in the position of the object of the problem.
Exactly. So
Like a symbol, not real.
by having the students think about their feelings regarding the problem, that will be like the moment or a stage related to the personal analogy, right? And the symbolic one is when they choose a symbol, a drawing, a picture that represents the problem. And the last one is like to think about and real possible solutions to the problem, so that since the objective is to develop creativity, we need to help the students move from the usual ways to solve a problem to something really different and new, and that probably could be applied in real life. So by following those moments, we could have students reflect about the problem and try to give solutions. It's not that we present, it's not the same as what we usually do in classes, which is to give students the problem and the solution, but to help them with some stages to move from understanding the topic, understanding the problem, and trying to come up with a possible solution. Lida wrote the students relates the problem as part of his or her life. Exactly, that's one part of the moments, one analogy, which is the personal one. So in the chart that is presented in the reading, we have 5 moments. So the second one is the personal analogy, which is related to having the students relate themselves with the problem. So how are they affected, or how they feel about the problem. And the direct analogy, which is before, is related to think about other example in real life in which the problem can be observed, can be in which the problem can exist or has happened. So as to see that it can also be in other in our reality, but for example in nature. So since this is a proposal to have students think about how to solve coexistence problems in society, like for example how to deal uh, with let's say selfishness. So if we think about the problem of selfishness as something related to citizenship and how to solve it, we can have students reflect about how selfishness is reflected in nature, for example, in animals or in other contexts. And that's why it is an analogy to think how it happens in other contexts. So that will help students to understand the problem, but also think about other ways that it can be resolved in other situations or in other contexts. All right. Is there anything in that list or in that proposal that calls your attention, or something that you want to add about synetics, or a question that you might have about those moments?
Teacher,
Andres.
one thing I think is good is some stages or some things to stimulate critical thinking. According to Vasquez and Reina, they talk about 6 stages or things. They talk about to make stimulant questions, to respect answers and students' ideas, recognize and to value originality, to diversify didactics or methodologies, uh, to recognize as well uh, what the students have good, what are the potentials of students, and to be aware that not all of the ideas are creative.
Yes, so what you mentioned are important aspects that we need to take into account when we want to promote creativity. It's not that we just present all the information and we don't accept students' ideas, but the opposite. We need to be uh, open to new ways of thinking and accept those students' uh, ideas because that is the way they will find out, um, they will reflect, they will analyze, they will become more critical, and they will think if what they are actually saying is could help to solve, in this case, a problem. Good. Giancarlo, you have a question.
Uh, my question has to do with the implementation of uh, this synectics in the English language teaching. I was basically thinking about this because I believe that maybe methodologies like project-based learning will be fixed, or the one that might better enable us to incorporate this type of activities when you're working on a project that has a lot of creation or has a student employ creativity skills throughout the product design and the product design development and presentation. But I wanted to ask you if maybe this is correct, or do you have any other suggestion on how to apply this simultaneously with the different methodologies that we use for teaching English?
Okay, good question. And in order to answer that one, I would like George to tell us about his second class because George Gutierrez, one of your classmates, uh, uses greetings and uses audio files as a way to promote discussion and critical thinking. And his last class, the one that he videotaped, uh, is a good example on like the previous stages in order to promote creativity at the end, in order to use cymatics at the end. I thought that he could probably have used cymatics moments at the end of his lesson to promote creativity. So George, could you please tell us about your second lesson, the topic and like the activities that you had? George? Okay, no, probably he's not available now. I'm going to tell you about his class. He was teaching high school students, and his topic was about bees. So the importance of bees in nature and why they are in danger now. So he had a series of exercises based on videos about the importance of bees and why they were in danger. So the students work on listening comprehension exercises, and his proposal at the end of the lesson was to have students create a poster in which the students could write how to help bees to how to save bees from the from death because they are dying more and more every time. So I thought that at the end of his class, he could have actually not only write on the poster the solutions that they heard from the videos or they watched the videos as a summary, but actually he could have used the analogies to have the students think about other possible solutions to help bees reproduce and to protect bees because they are dying and they are important for nature. So in his case, his students work not on the, I mean, his class is not based on a grammar topic, but his class was based on a on the bees, on the topic of bees and their importance in nature. So we could use like that sequence that I just told you to have students read or listen about a topic which is actually a problem which affects, in this case of George class, affects everybody because bees are important in the chain um, in order for us to get food. So he could have used that, or he could have proposed at the end of the lesson the analogies so that at the end students could have come up with ideas on how to protect bees. Um, what happens also in his class is that um his students have a high or have a lot of knowledge of English. They are pre-intermediate, I would say. So that knowledge allows them to have those discussions, right? So we could again like think about if we have students with less knowledge of English, we could think about other topics that might be easier for the students, other problems that might be easier for the students that require like less knowledge of English in order to have those type of discussions.
I was thinking that for lower level of English, I don't know if I'm right in this inference. Like, for example, in the case of direct analogies, like we could use words, for example. I mean, for a
Giancarlo? Giancarlo, we can hear you. Giancarlo? Can you guys hear me? Because I can't hear Giancarlo.
Yes, I hear you,
We
teacher.
can hear you, teacher,
Okay.
but not Giancarlo.
Okay, now Giancarlo is offline. All right.
Yes.
So,
Teacher, I would like to mention something. May I?
yes, Alejo.
Well, actually, I just wanted to highlight that the reading that you chose or the research that you chose for the last activity, actually, I think it was very interesting because, like, in many of the cases, we see like research or readings from a very important, I mean, from a very important author or another country or maybe very important universities. But actually, the type of population in the place where it happened, it was like in the south of Bogota. And I mean, that part of Bogota is like a very dangerous. I mean, not in only in terms of the people who live there, but also the type of situations that students have to face like every day. So I think that that research where I mean teachers are interested in changing those type of things in the since the school and since changing the type of classes in their teaching processes. So actually, I think that it was very interesting.
I agree with you. Although civic problems, we can see them
Yes,
everywhere in our country.
about the reading that you chose for the activity of last week. that happened in Rafael Uribe Uribe.
Ah, okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, so those, yes, those teachers were, those researchers were addressing a problem, uh, and most of the articles from the book I'm taking the readings are were carried out in public schools in areas, in difficult areas in Bogota. So yes, those researchers were addressing real problems in those places, in those contexts. Uh, Going back to Giancarlo's question about how to use this strategy in our English classes, that thinking about beginners, I would say that we should low the we should rough tune the language, which is a concept that you've seen in the rubric of your videos, which is to have to present information according to the student's knowledge of the language. So if I'm going to present beginners the topic of problems in society regarding coexistence, so I could have students read about the problem, but the reading would be modified for that level to understand it. And probably we could, in that way, we can promote the understanding of the information, and that we could also have students produce possible solutions in very short sentences or even in Spanish. If we get students to understand the problem explained, or that they can listen to it, or that they can read about it, but in a source which is modified for their level, we are having them practice English, but by the time they need to produce, we could expect students to use some Spanish, or we could accept short and simple sentences depending on their level if they are beginners. But I think it is key to think that in order to promote this strategy, in order to use this strategy or the one that we had last in the last encounter, it is necessary to plan a lesson thinking about a problem that students need to solve. So in the example of George's class, the problem was how to help bees reproduce and how to protect them. So he used videos and readings about the problem, right? But he planned his lesson based on that topic and not thinking about how to have students practice present simple or practice future simple or practice present perfect, but how to have students think about this problem and probably come up with some ideas on how to solve the problem. So again, we could have like we could choose like the problems less complex or readings adapted to their level if we are going to work with beginners or pre-intermediate. Do you guys have comments about this strategy, other questions, ideas on how to use it? How could you use it in your classes? How could you modify your classes to use these stages? No questions, comments?
Teacher, would be awesome to implement this strategy, but as you say, we have to take in account the student's level. For example, in my case, with beginners, implement this strategy will be hard because they hardly any is learning vocabulary and the tenses. So, in order to bring them a problem, I think it's going to be difficult to them to solve the problem, to figure out the solution,
Yes,
because the level is so low, it's lower.
in your case, this problem, the one that was in the reading, is very complex for them. If we want them to use English to understand readings and to produce using English, that probably, if you take a look at the books that um, that are written for beginners and the readings that we can find in those books, you could probably get like a reading that could be related, associated with a problem, and could help you to think about a problem which is not that complex, that can be used for beginners. The challenge is to change our methodology, uh,
Yes,
because I think we are always thinking when we teach English, uh, we are almost all the time thinking about how to help students be accurate, and we forget about the other skills that we need to help the students to develop.
okay, teacher.
So as I suggest, you probably, by looking at the other reading by looking at books designed for beginners, and analyzing the readings that are proposed in those books, you might probably find out one reading that can be associated with a problem which is not that complex as the one that we are discussing tonight.
Where can I get these books, teacher, in order to read about the topic
Well,
with beginners?
books are, well, any book,
About
but also
the net.
any book that a book that I recommend, that I think is different, is one that is called Life, and is the editor is Engage. No, sorry, Nat Geo. See, well, Nat Geo and Engage are together for this book, and I
Okay,
like
those
that book.
books.
I like that book because the readings or the audios are about different topics. And if you watch the channel, the Nat Geo channel, you will see that they present information about different real things. So not only problems with nature in nature, but also, uh, for example, different types of or unusual jobs, or something that is real that students can be engaged with, and that can uh, catch their attention. So that could be one option. Probably you can Google live series, and
Yes.
see if there are any information about the book in internet. Uh, because I've used it in other contexts. I use it in the place where I worked before. So I know about the book, I have used it, and I know what type of readings it has.
Ah, okay, teacher, thanks.
I don't know if you can get like actually some readings from the book in internet.
Just because the topic caught my attention. It's so interesting. So I would like to implement this method. Thank you,
Well,
teacher.
okay. The idea is to try out something new and see if it works. because if we
Yes, if I want.
the same, if we continue doing the same, we will get the same results.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
okay,
Okay, teacher, thanks.
thanks, Francisco. Any other comment or question? Okay, if you don't have more comments, yes, Sharon uses those books. Sharon, in the place where Sharon works, she has those books. So probably, I don't know if you can share with Francisco like one reading from one of the books that you have, Sharon.
Well, related with those books, in this moment, I am using the 21st Century Reading Comprehension book, but this kind of books that Engage produce are are designed in a way that students develop that global citizenship in a world context. And for saying, in the last webinar I assist, that was yesterday, I think, we were using the live books, and most of these books are also related with topics that are focused on real situations stuff and get involved with greater readers. And the webinars that they promote are focused in the way we understand the students learn by using different strategies, but these books are not also focused for teenagers or childs, also for adults. Or maybe you can get into a web page that is in focus, or you can search Cengage, and the first option that appears in Google, you can get in and enroll in the webinars, and they start sending you all information about books and all these things. But you can roll me a message to remind me, and I will send you information about it if you want it. Because here in Cali, I am using all those books, and the last school year, I used there was the Reading Explorer book, which is related by the teaching history, and life is about is more related with nature, but also for youngers and preschool students is a book which name is Our World, that is very interactive and didactic. It's not only about reading and reading and produce. It's most related with the way students get involved into the nature. So if you want, you can roll me a private message later, and I send you information if you want.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon. Will be useful.
Okay, good. So that's for you. The task will be like to think about how to make changes and how to implement things in your classes which can help the students to be more creative. Good, so I'm going to stop the encounter now, and we'll meet next week. This week you are working on writing your third lesson plan, which is the last one of the course. You are expected to publish the third lesson plan before Sunday. right? So any question you might have, email me. And that's all for tonight. So we'll meet again next week. Have a good night, everybody.
Okay, teacher. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Good night,
teacher.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night.